Have you ever felt invisible in a room full of people? You speak, but your words evaporate into the air. You have good ideas, but they are somehow credited to others. It feels like you're playing a game where everyone else was given the rule book and you were not. What if I told you the most powerful players don't play that game at all? They change the board, and they often do it in complete silence. This isn't about cheap manipulation or dark tricks. This is about mastering the unspoken language of power and psychology. This is about understanding the deep currents of human nature so that you can navigate them with wisdom and integrity. This is the very essence of what we explore here on this channel. We don't just discuss psychology. We decode the hidden architecture of the human mind. We translate the timeless wisdom of the world's greatest thinkers into practical, powerful tools you can use to build a stronger self. Subscribe to our channel if you seek to truly understand yourself and master your inner world. Today, we begin with one of its most potent principles. This is about becoming so solid within yourself that the world has no choice but to gravitate towards you. By the end of this video, you will not just know the rules of the game you've been forced to play. You will become the one who sets them. Part 1. The Overman Gaze. Seeing what others miss. Have you ever felt like you're playing a game, but you were never given the rules? You watch people move, you hear them speak, but you sense a hidden current, an invisible language that everyone else seems to understand. You feel one step behind, reacting to moves that were decided long before you even saw the board. This feeling of being perpetually outmaneuvered, of missing the crucial detail, is not a failure of your intelligence. It's a failure of your perception. The first, most profound step to mastering the art of human dynamics is not to learn how to speak, but how to see. We call this the Overman's Gaze, the ability to see what everyone else misses. The journey begins with a simple shift. Most people listen to what is being said. The master of their own soul listens to why it is being said. You must train your eyes and your spirit to look past the carefully constructed performance we call a personality and see the raw, trembling human motive beneath. You must learn to read the silent story. Think of the person at a gathering who loudly lists their accomplishments. The crowd might hear confidence, but you will learn to see the faint shadow of a deep-seated fear of being ordinary. Their boast is not a declaration of strength. It's a desperate flare sent up from a sinking ship of self-worth. Consider the person who uses aggression as their primary tool. The world may see power, but you will recognize the unmistakable signature of fear. Their anger is a shield, a poorly built wall to hide a terrified heart that believes it must strike first or be destroyed. And what of the one who agrees with everyone, whose kindness seems to have no edges? It is rarely a sign of a truly generous spirit. More often, it is a silent, desperate plea for validation, a willingness to erase themselves in exchange for a fleeting moment of approval. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche urged us to look beyond good and evil. We will adapt this for our purpose. You must learn to look beyond the surface-level performance. You must pierce the veil of the social mask. This is not an exercise in cynicism. It is an act of profound clarity. To see the insecurity behind the boast is not to judge, but to understand. To see the fear behind the aggression is not to condemn, but to recognize the source of the wound. But here is the paradox, the first great secret of silent power. The more you learn to see, the less you should react. True strength is not found in exposing the truth you've uncovered. It lies in seeing everything and revealing nothing. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting the world back to itself, while your own inner state remains a tranquil sanctuary. But what do you do when what you see is a direct attack on you? When the aggression is pointed squarely at your heart? How can silence possibly be a shield against an open insult? I'll reveal this defensive technique right now. The answer lies in understanding the true nature of an insult. An insult is almost never about you. It is a desperate, clumsy attempt by another person to steal your emotional energy, to drain your status in order to patch their own leaking self-esteem. They are trying to provoke a reaction because your reaction, your anger, your hurt, your defense is the prize. It validates their power over you by not reacting, by meeting their aggression with nothing more than a calm, unwavering gaze. You perform a powerful act. You refuse to play their game. You deny them the validation they so desperately crave. In that moment of their confusion, as they stand there with their verbal weapon having hit nothing, you hold all the power. Their attack hangs in the air, revealing not your weakness, but their own desperate need. This is your first silent shield. It is the peace that comes from understanding. Now you can see the hidden truth, and you possess a fundamental defense. But seeing is passive. Protection is reactive. What if I told you there's a silent technique so powerful it can make your presence shout louder than anyone else's words? A way to draw all the attention and respect in a room towards you without you uttering a single syllable? The secret to this gravitational silence is what we'll uncover next. Part 2. The gravity of silence. When less is monumentally more. In the last part, we promised you a secret. The secret to a silence so profound it commands more attention than any shout. A presence so powerful it can draw all the energy in a room towards you without a single word. This gravitational power isn't a trick of the light. It's rooted in a fundamental, almost spiritual law of human nature. What is scarce is perceived as valuable. We live in a world drowning in noise, an endless flood of opinions, reactions, and desperate bids for attention. In this chaotic ocean, silence is not emptiness. It is an island. It is a fortress. It is a statement of profound self-possession. In a meeting where everyone is scrambling over each other to speak first, your deliberate, patient silence creates a vacuum. It is unnatural. It is intriguing, and it communicates a level of control and confidence that words never can. You are not desperately seeking to be heard. You are demonstrating that you have nothing to prove. When you finally choose to speak, your words don't just add to the cacophony. They break it. They land with the force of a judge's gavel because they are rare. They have been forged in the quiet furnace of thought, not thrown out in the heat of the moment. People don't just hear them, they feel them. This is the difference between adding to the noise and providing the clarity everyone was searching for. Your scarcity of speech makes each word an event. Practice this. In your next conversation, especially when you feel the urge to immediately respond, to defend, or to fill an awkward pause, don't take a breath. Hold your space. Let the other person face the weight of your quiet attention. Let them rush to fill the void you have created. You will be astonished at what happens. In their discomfort with stillness, they will reveal everything. They will lay out their strategy, their deepest anxieties, their entire hand of cards, all because they cannot bear the mirror of your silence. This is not a manipulation. It is a gift of clarity. You are giving them the space to show you who they truly are, and they are giving you the truth you need to understand the situation fully. This technique is incredibly potent when you are physically present. But what about the story that is told about you when you are not in the room? How can you use this principle to shape your public reputation, to change the way an entire community or workplace perceives your character? The method to rewrite your own social legend is surprisingly simple, yet it requires a virtue that is anything but consistency. A reputation is not built in a day. It is chiseled moment by moment through repeated action. When you are consistently the calm, observant, and thoughtful person in every interaction, from the high-stakes negotiation to the casual chat in the hallway, your reputation begins to precede you. You are no longer just a person, you become an idea. The story people tell about you begins to change. They will start to use the very words that your silent strength projects. He is centered. She is wise. That is the one who truly understands what's going on. You are building a legend about yourself, not by uttering a single boast, but by embodying a quiet power that others can only admire. This is not about crafting a mask. It is about allowing your cultivated inner stillness to radiate outward until it defines you in the eyes of the world. So far, you have learned to see the truth behind the performance. And now, you have learned how the gravity of your silence can shape the space around you. But both of those are, in essence, defensive. They are shields. It is time to move beyond defense. It's time to learn how to engage in the battle. So, what do you do when the attack is direct, intelligent, and unavoidable? How do you face an incoming assault not by building a higher wall, but by catching the arrows fired at you, turning them into your own, and using your opponent's own strength against them? Part 3. The Alchemy of Power. Turning attacks into gold. In the silent spaces you have learned to hold, you found your sight. In the gravity of your quiet presence, you found your shield. You have learned the art of defense, of observation, of becoming a fortress of calm in a chaotic world. But a fortress, no matter how strong, is still a static thing. It is time to move beyond the walls. It is time to learn how to actively engage the world, not with weapons you must forge yourself, but by mastering the subtle alchemy of turning the weapons of your opponent into your own source of power. This is where you learn to turn the lead of conflict into the gold of victory. This journey begins with mastering the battlefield itself. In any interaction, there is an invisible frame, a context that defines what is strong and what is weak, what is brave and what is foolish. He who controls this frame controls the outcome. Imagine you are in a room presenting an idea you have poured your soul into, an idea for growth, for change. Then a voice cuts through the air, dismissing your work with two simple words. Too risky. The novice instinct is to defend, to list statistics, to argue the logic, to prove your safety case. But this is a trap. By defending, you are playing within their frame, a frame where risk is the enemy and the status quo is safety. The master does not defend. The master redefines the entire battlefield. You meet their gaze with the calm you have cultivated, and you don't argue with their point. You change the very definition of risk itself. You might say, "You're right, there's a risk." But the far greater risk is in standing still while the world moves past us. The true danger lies not in this step, but in the slow, certain decay of inaction. Do you see what has happened? You have not just countered their attack. You have absorbed its energy and used it to elevate your position. Suddenly, your idea is framed as courage, foresight, and strength. Their position is now the one that appears fearful, weak, and attached to a dying past. You have seized control of the narrative without raising your voice. But what happens when the attack is not a subtle jab at your idea, but a direct, poisoned arrow aimed at your heart? What do you do when someone looks at you and declares your project is doomed to fail? Here, we move beyond reframing. We practice the art of absorption. Instead of a shield, you become a crucible. You look at them with no malice, no defensiveness, only that unwavering, quiet attention, and you say, "Thank you. You have just highlighted a potential weakness I need to fortify." In that moment, a profound transformation occurs. You have taken the poison of their negativity and transmuted it into the medicine of your strategy. Their attempt to demoralize you has become a tool to strengthen you. Their aggression has become your fuel. This is the essence of what Nietzsche called the will to power. Not the brutish desire for domination over others, but the unquenchable internal fire that drives you to overcome obstacles, to seek out challenges, and to grow stronger from the very things that are meant to break you. It is the responsible stewardship of your own spirit, turning every trial into a new layer of strength. Yet, listening to this, a question may rise within you. A constant battle, a perpetual state of turning attacks into fuel, doesn't it sound utterly exhausting? Is life meant to be this endless war? How do you find peace in the midst of this struggle? Is there a way not just to win the fight, but to learn to love the fight itself? Here lies the final secret of the alchemist, the highest state of this art. Amor fati, the love of one's fate. This is not the passive resignation of a victim. It is the ultimate power move. It is the ability to look at every obstacle, every attack, every setback, and every failure, and to say with every fiber of your being, "This was necessary, this was for me, this made me stronger." When you truly embrace this, you become invincible. You cannot threaten a person who uses threats as fuel for their fire. You cannot defeat a person who sees every defeat as a crucial lesson from a wise teacher. You are no longer just a player in the game, anxiously trying to win. You have fallen in love with the game itself, in all its beautiful, brutal, and glorious complexity. With this, you can face any individual, any single attack, and transform it into a source of power. But what happens when the enemy isn't one person? What happens when the force you must confront is not a single opponent, but an entire crowd, a herd of minds all rushing toward the same cliff edge of mistaken belief? How do you stop a stampede? And more than that, how do you make them turn and follow you? Part 4. The Shepherd and the Flock. How to lead the many without becoming one. You have learned to turn an enemy's attack into your own strength. But what happens when the force you face is not a single attacker, but 100 or 1,000? What do you do when you're faced with the immense rushing power of a crowd, a herd of minds all moving as one? To lead them, to turn the tide, you cannot meet this force head on. You must first understand its soul. The soul of a crowd is fundamentally different from the soul of an individual. It does not seek challenge, growth, or truth. As the philosopher Nietzsche warned with his haunting image of the last man, the collective soul craves only two things: comfort and the absolute avoidance of pain. It seeks warmth, predictability, and the soothing illusion of safety. This is not a weakness to be judged. It is a fundamental human truth to be understood. It is the key to true leadership. Therefore, you never try to sell the crowd on bold risks or radical change. To their ears, these words sound like a threat. They are the rumble of an earthquake under their feet. Instead, you must learn to frame your vision, your great new direction, as the only true path to safety in a world that is already dangerous. You do not stand before them and shout, "We must charge that hill." That is the cry of a fool, and they will abandon you to the wolves. Instead, you adopt the calm, steady voice of a watchman on a high tower. You point to the horizon and say, "A storm is gathering. The winds are changing. I know it is comfortable here in the valley, but the floods are coming." That hill, and here you point to your vision, is the only high ground. It is the only place we will all be safe and dry when the waters rise. Do you see the alchemy? Your idea is no longer a terrifying risk. It has become a rescue mission. Their fear of the unknown becomes the very engine that drives them toward your solution. You haven't created fear. You have simply redirected the fear that was already there towards a productive, life-affirming goal. You have become their salvation. They begin to follow you. The momentum shifts. Their eyes are now on you, their hope entrusted to your vision. But right here, in this moment of triumph, lies the most subtle and dangerous trap you will ever face. In speaking their language, in soothing their fears to guide them, don't you risk losing yourself? Don't you begin to dilute your own vision, trimming the edges, softening the truth, just to keep their approval? This is the whisper of the populist, the siren song that turns a leader into a panderer, a shepherd into just another sheep, bleating what the flock wants to hear. The answer to this defines your character for eternity. You must be in the group, but never of the group. You walk among them. You may share their bread and listen to their stories, but your mind, your spirit, must remain your own sovereign territory. You are their guide, not their reflection. Your integrity is the North Star by which you navigate, not the shifting sands of their opinion. This is the sacred responsibility of leadership, to hold a vision truer and higher than the group can currently see for itself. But what happens when their path diverges from yours? When, in their fear or their fervor, the group begins to march towards a moral cliff, an act of cruelty, a compromise of principle, a betrayal of the very values you claim to uphold? This is the final test of the shepherd. You do not raise your voice in argument. You do not deliver a sermon they will not hear. You do something far more radical and far more powerful. You simply, silently stop walking. Your feet plant themselves on the ground. Your quiet refusal to take one more step in the wrong direction creates a deafening silence. Your stillness is a question mark in the middle of their stampede. It is an act of profound courage that forces the wisest among them to pause, to turn back, and to wonder, why has the most centered one among us, our guide, refused to go on? You lead not by shouting commands, but by the undeniable gravity of your moral stance. You can now see the truth in individuals. You can command respect with your silence. You can turn attacks into strength, and you can guide the will of the many. This accumulation of power makes you a formidable presence in the world, and it also makes you profoundly dangerous, especially to yourself. For there is one final trial waiting at the summit of this mountain, an adversary far more cunning and perilous than any external enemy. Part 5. The Summit's Trial. Power versus Wisdom. You have faced the external world. You have learned to see through its masks, to command its attention, and to turn its force into your own momentum. You have walked among the crowd and guided it towards safety without losing your soul. You have climbed the mountain, but here at the summit, in the thin, quiet air, you face the final trial, and the enemy is not in front of you. The enemy is the voice inside you that whispers, "You have won." Because you have acquired the instruments of power, the great life-defining question now becomes why? Why did you seek this strength? Was it to build or was it to conquer? Was it to liberate or was it to control? This is the trial that separates the wise from the wicked, the shepherd from the tyrant. Imagine yourself as a walker on a tightrope, stretched across a chasm. This is the path of power. On one side is the abyss of manipulation, a world where you use your insight to exploit the weaknesses of others, where your silence becomes a tool of intimidation, and where you lead the crowd only to feed your own insatiable hunger for control. It is a lonely path that ends in a fortress of paranoia, where you trust no one because you know the darkness of which a human heart is capable, for you have mastered it in yourself. On the other side of the tightrope is the destination you were born to seek, a state of wise, benevolent influence. It is a world where your clarity serves to heal, not to wound, where your strength becomes a shield for those who have none, where your leadership is not a performance of authority, but a quiet act of service. The balancing pole you hold in your hands, the one thing that keeps you from plummeting into either abyss, is your purpose. And here we arrive at the great moral secret that has been the silent foundation of this entire journey. The reason you have worked so tirelessly to build this inner fortress, this unshakable core of self-possession, is not ultimately for yourself. It is the sacred duty of filling your own cup to the absolute brim, so that you may give to others from a place of genuine abundance, not from a place of desperate need. An empty vessel cannot quench another's thirst. A fractured soul cannot offer shelter. You worked to become strong, not to dominate the world, but to be a pillar upon which a better part of it could rest. You sought power, not to be feared, but to become a source of profound stability for those you are called to protect and to love. This is a noble ideal, a guiding star. But in the fog of daily life, how do you ensure you are not fooling yourself? How do you know with certainty that you are walking the path of the wise shepherd and not the cunning manipulator who has simply learned to tell himself a more beautiful story? How do you check that you are truly serving a higher purpose and not just a more polished, more socially acceptable version of your own ego? The answer lies in a simple, private, daily ritual, a question that must become your compass. At the end of each day, in a moment of honest reflection, you must look back on your actions, your words, and your silences and ask yourself this: today, did I act from a place of strength and service, or from a place of fear and need? This question is everything. Fear and need are the currencies of the ego. They are the frantic impulses to prove your worth, to seize validation, to protect a fragile identity. Strength and service are the hallmarks of a spirit rooted in something far deeper. They are the calm actions that flow from a full cup, from a sense of purpose that does not require the world's applause. This question, asked with ruthless honesty, is the guide that will keep your power clean. It is the anchor that will hold you fast to your true north. You have the tools. You now have the compass. You have passed the summit's trial. So, what does the destination look like? What happens when all these techniques, these strategies, these deliberate actions dissolve into the background and simply become you? It is a state of being where you no longer need the rules because you embody the principle. You no longer have to decide to be silent to create gravity. Your very presence is a wellspring of stillness. You no longer have to consciously look for the motive behind the words. Your spirit naturally perceives the truth. The artifice falls away. The alchemy becomes your nature. You do not wield power. You are a conduit for it, flowing from a place of purpose. You have not just learned to outsmart others. You have learned to master yourself. And in doing so, you have become more than a player in the game. You have become a force for order, for light, and for wisdom in a world that desperately needs all three. Part 6. Beyond Domination, the Silence of the Self-Mastered Soul. We have walked a long road together, through the labyrinth of human motive, across the battlefield of conflict, and up the steep ascent to the summit of your own power. At every step, we spoke of tools, of strategies, of shields and swords, but I promised you a destination, and that destination is not one final technique. It is a state of being. First, let us revisit the kingdom you once defended. Remember the feeling? The constant low hum of anxiety in your chest. The desperate need to win every argument, not for truth, but to avoid the bitter taste of defeat. Recall the hollow echo of those victories, the strained relationships, the silent resentment from those you bested. You built a fortress around your ego, but its walls were brittle, and the throne room was a lonely place. Every interaction was a calculation, every conversation a chess match. This was not strength. It was a life lived in a state of perpetual, exhausting siege. Now imagine letting the fortress walls dissolve. Imagine a victory so complete that you no longer require the spoils of war. This is the great secret we have been building toward. The ultimate art of silent domination is to transcend the need to dominate at all. It is the final, greatest alchemy, the stillness of the self-mastered soul. Picture your new reality. You wake not to a battle, but to a vast, open field of possibility. You hear criticism, and it no longer feels like an arrow aimed at your heart. It is simply data, a wind that blows past you. Disagreement in conversation is no more threatening than a cloud passing in front of the sun. It does not diminish the sun's light. It merely passes. You are so utterly secure in your own truth that the frantic need to manage the world outside you dissolves. Why? Because you have finally established an unshakable kingdom within you. This inner kingdom is not built of fear, but of principle. Its laws are integrity and self-awareness. Its advisors are wisdom and compassion. Its currency is not the approval of others, but a profound internal reservoir of peace. When this inner realm is orderly and rich, the chaos of the outer world loses its power to wound you. You are no longer a ship tossed on the waves of circumstance. You are the deep, quiet ocean itself. This journey has been a Nietzschean one, a path toward the overman. But we must reframe this idea. The true overman is not the tyrant who imposes his will upon the world. That is a primitive interpretation. The true overman, the one who has completed the ascent, has transformed his will to power. It is no longer a force aimed outward to control others, but a force turned inward to achieve complete and gentle mastery of the self. It becomes a creative, life-affirming energy. In this state, your domination is not a force you exert, but a quality you radiate. It is the gravitational pull of a soul that is finally, truly at peace. It is the profound and quiet authority that comes from a cup so overflowing with inner peace and self-respect that it can give endlessly without thought of return. Your presence alone becomes an anchor in a storm. When you walk into a room filled with chaos, your stillness brings clarity. Your calm becomes a quiet invitation for others to find their own. You do not command it. You simply offer it by existing. This is the fulfillment of the moral compass that guided us. The strength you have cultivated is not power over anyone. It is strength that flows through you for the good of all who enter your orbit. It is the strength of the oak tree that does not command the smaller plants to grow in its shade, but simply provides the shelter for them to flourish. The artifice falls away. The strategies become instinct. The alchemy becomes your nature. It is the stillness of the deep ocean, not the chaotic noise of the breaking wave. It is the unseen strength of the root, not the visible trembling of the leaf. The tools are no longer in your hands. They are now a part of you. The true art of living begins now. It begins in the silence of your choices when no one is watching. In the silence of your heart, when you choose compassion over judgment and wisdom over being right. Your final instruction is this: become not the loudest voice in the room, but the silence that everyone leans in to hear.